Well, it's always a pleasure to have America's governor with us, Ron DeSantis. Governor, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Now, you're playing golf with Donald Trump. Are you a good golf player? I'm just curious. You're a good athlete. I mean, you've been a good athlete most of your life, right?
I can hit the ball far. I can make some putts. But I would say it's still a work in progress. I still have a little bit of the baseball swing in me for playing baseball from the time I was 3 until I was done a senior in college. It's a little bit different swing, but we're down in Florida, and it's kind of like if you live in Colorado and you don't know how to ski. Well, in Florida, if you're down here and you don't golf, you're a little bit of a fish out of water. It's a big sport for us down here. But the president is a very good player, definitely the best president golfer we've ever had, and he's got great golf courses all around the world, and his one in Palm Beach County is really, really good. So it's you get your money's worth there because it's well conditioned. But man, these holes they're big time holes.
They're tough, yeah. All right, you want to have a special session of the Florida legislature. You have a little bit of pushback for some really strange reason. You've got a well thought out set of proposals that you want to bring forward, so that Florida is right there at the point of the spear when President Trump says, okay, we have to start deporting these illegal aliens, especially these criminals, and you want to say, we are set, we have everything in place. Tell us about that.
So Donald Trump won in major part, because of the border and immigration. The last 4 years have been a total disaster. Republicans across the country, all the people in the Florida legislature have complained about Biden's border policies. President Trump's victory is a mandate to reverse those policies, reestablish our sovereignty, and remove the people, particularly the people that Biden let in, and we don't even know who these people are. This is millions and millions of people. And so the states, like California, they're going to try to frustrate President Trump. Some states will just be indifferent to it. But then other states like Florida, we need to be facilitating this mission. And the federal government cannot commandeer local police departments and tell them to do this. It's a basic aspect of the structure of our Constitution. But the state, we can pass legislation imposing duties on all of our local jurisdictions, as well as the state, to assist federal immigration authorities in removing illegal aliens and in enforcing immigration laws writ large. So I set out a set of proposals. We set a special election, which I'm empowered to do, January 27th, which is a week after President Trump takes office. Now, I've spoken with him. We've spoken to some of his staff, and he's got people like Stephen Miller who are really good on these issues. They have executive orders ready to go. So you're going to see that on January 20th, major changes. And as part of those executive orders, they want to beef up something called 287G program, which allows local jurisdictions to opt into a federal program to help with immigration enforcement. They're not required to do it. We are going to require them in the state of Florida to do it. And we have a whole host of other proposals that will help in this very, very critical mission. Now, I made the call on Monday morning that we needed to do this. The two leaders in the legislature put out a letter saying that it was premature to talk about any immigration legislation. And I'm just thinking to myself, premature? We dealt with Biden for 4 years. It's about damn time we do some illegal immigration legislation. But here's the thing. Their view is, well, it can wait till May at the end of our legislative session, and anything past then wouldn't even take effect till July 1st. Why would we waste 6 months when we can act now? Secondly, President Trump's going to need the states right off the bat more at any time in his presidency. He doesn't have all the resources. He's going to have to go to Congress and ask for wall funding. He's going to have to get funding to beef up some of the ICE and some of the other things that they're doing. They're going to need more detention space. So if the states can step up now and assist, we'll be force multipliers and we'll help process the mission, especially until he can get more funding. So, and the president agrees. He urged other governors to follow suit. We have an important role to play. You know, Mark, it's interesting, and you watch this for years. We'll do things in Florida like we criminalize smuggling people into Florida from across the border, and federal judges will say That's unconstitutional. The federal government has sole province in enforcing immigration laws. And so they basically said Biden had the right not to enforce immigration laws. Yeah. And if all we wanted to do was enforce what was on the law, somehow that was a problem. Well, now you can't have it both ways. If that's the case, if the federal government is enforcing immigration laws, we're clearly supplementing them. We're not conflicting with what they're doing. So this should be a no-brainer. And I can tell you the people around the state of Florida, they're like, finally, because we've led on this issue. We've done, no IDs for illegals, E-Verify. We've done all these things. And it's had an impact. We've saved a lot of tax dollars. Illegals have left the state. But you can't solve this problem without the federal government leading the way. Donald Trump is going to lead, and we're going to be there to follow. So we need to get this done. I know Tennessee's looking at a similar session, and I think you're going to see other Republican states do it, and that will really, really make a difference in whether or not the president can succeed or not.
So the president wants it. You want it. His staff thinks it's important. And you have these authorities as the governor. Are these two Republicans, these so-called leaders, still trying to prevent you from having a special session?
Well, it's interesting. I haven't really heard much since they put out the letter, but I think the response that Republicans had to that letter, when they said it was premature and it was not something that was urgent and it could wait months, that did not go over well with Republican voters. And I think if you ask them, do you want the legislature coming in, working with the governor to help support Trump's immigration policies now, or can it wait 3 or 4 months? I think it's like 80 out of 80% say do it now. They want to see action. This is a once-in-a-decade opportunity, maybe a once-in-a-generation opportunity to finally end the illegal immigration crisis in this country. And we've been talking about it for decades. We obviously have to do stuff on the border, and President Trump wants to do that. But if you don't have interior enforcement, none of this stuff is going to ultimately work. So now is the time to step up. Now is the time to lead. Florida's doing that. I wish that I had universal agreement with legislative leaders on it, but we got to put it front and center. And if they want to go into there and they don't want to act on it, then their constituents will obviously take notice of it. But I think it's untenable that you would go in there and reject equipping Florida to be able to help with this very, very important mission.
I honestly don't understand what the arguments are. What I read in their letter was so ridiculous. We can do it later. Trump's not ready. Well, Trump is ready. Well, the governor's not ready. Well, the governor is ready. He has a plan. And so we can do it in May. You don't wait. It's the first 100 days. They're critical. We're here with America's governor, Governor Ron DeSantis. Let me ask you this question, Governor. If you were me, you're sitting behind this microphone, and you're told Joe Biden's going to give his 1200th farewell address, and it's live at 8, would you take it or would you pass on it? What would you do?
Well, if you want your audience to decline, Mark, then you should take it. But I don't think you want that. I think they'd much rather listen to you, in the words of wisdom. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you and I are political. We're conservatives. We're on the right. Make no apologies about that. So, obviously, we're not going to like anyone that's kind of on the left. But there are people on the left that may like a liberal president. But just objectively speaking, Biden has been the worst president of my lifetime, and I was born during Jimmy Carter's presidency, and I don't even think it's close. And now he's intent on leaving this wave of destruction in his wake. He's commuting the sentence of these terrible people on death row. He's removing Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorist list. I mean, you name it. It's just unbelievable. And so he is ending one of the worst presidencies in American history. And I think that the ratings will likely be very low, and I think that's because the American people just want to move on from Joe Biden.
And what do you make of him taking credit for this ceasefire? I'm of two minds on this ceasefire. I don't like a lot of it, like 3,000 terrorists being released. But on the other hand, Netanyahu knows what he's doing. Trump knows what he's doing. And they still have the power to go back into Gaza and take care of business. And this time, by the way, they'd be able to do it without any hostages there. But, I'm not going to oppose it, but I'm not a cheerleader for it, quite frankly. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's. I've heard mixed things in terms of the news reports I've read. I think at the end of the day, we know this: January 20th, we are going to have a much stronger relationship with Israel than we've had over the last 4 years. I cannot imagine that Donald Trump, with all that he's done to support Israel, is going to accept anything less than a Gaza Strip that has no more Hamas. Hamas cannot continue to be a terrorist force that is threatening the state of Israel. October 7th taught us that. At the end of the day, these people want to eliminate the Jewish state entirely. I think the president and his team understand that. And so I think you're likely to see more shoes to drop. I mean, Donald Trump said all the hostages needed to be returned, and I think he means all of them. So whatever Biden has done with getting some back, I don't think that's the end of the story. I think Donald Trump's going to see it through. So I've definitely mixed reviews on what I've seen so far, but I think we should wait till Donald Trump gets in because I think he's going to end up getting this right.
I think that's a good point. Also, Iran is really the big actor there, and it looks like Netanyahu and Israel really do want to take out that nuclear site. And I think if you take out, or sites, and if you take out those sites, I think that government falls and the people there who don't want that government are liberated. Maybe they're playing the bigger game. Maybe that's the focus. What do you think of that?
There's no question that when President Trump gets in, if Israel were to take action in that way, he would not immediately go and undercut him like Biden would. And I think Bibi understands that. And you look at this, Iran has been weakened dramatically since October 7th. I mean, think about it, Mark. You have Biden and his administration doing all they can to prop up Iran, but Israel, with their determination, fighting not only Hamas, but Hezbollah, they have done remarkable work in weakening these really key arteries of Iranian terror. So Iran is as weak as it's been militarily in a long time. I think it's going to get a lot weaker economically because I think Trump's going to drop the hammer on them economically. I think he's going to bankrupt them like he did in his first term. So now is the time to end the threat. So if Israel wants to take that action, I think you're going to see the Trump administration support. I don't think Donald Trump's going to go into Iran or do anything, but if Bibi has the ability to take out those sites once and for all, I think he'll have a supporter in President Trump.
Yeah, and they did try to assassinate him, so there is that personal element too, probably. Communist China. I don't know, I've got you, so I feel like moving around the world here. Communist China, the gravest threat we have, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. If you think about the Cold War, that was a titanic struggle between the Soviets and the United States, and it was an ideological clash. But economically, the Soviet Union was a fraction of the United States. And what's happened with China, largely because I think some misguided policies from the West that's really empowered them, is their economy has grown to the point where, you know, they will be a peer competitor with ours, both militarily and economically on the current course. Now, Donald Trump recognized this when he ran for president the first time. The people that he's surrounding himself with on national security, I mean, Congressman Waltz is from Florida. He understands the China threat. Marco Rubio understands the China threat. So you're going to see policies that are going to be more tailored to deterring Chinese expansion in the Indo-Pacific. And I think they'll be successful. Donald Trump will also do things to unwind some of the unfair trade practices that China has engaged in for many, many decades. I think that will have the impact of weakening them economically. So I think there's a pathway to where we successfully check China, deter them from invading Taiwan, and prevent them from being the dominant power in the Indo-Pacific. That would not have happened if Biden had gotten reelected or Harris had gotten elected, but I do think that's going to happen under a second Trump administration.
Let me ask you this, and I've been wondering about this. You know, I use you and your state as an example of what a governor does and what a state does to prepare for these emergencies. You know, nature is pretty brutal. It's not just about polar bears, it's about death. And you understand you're going to get hurricanes every year. You don't know how many, you don't know how bad. You've got to prepare in 1,000 different ways. You look at California, you know they're going to have wildfires out there. They create the conditions for it. You know, nature does what nature does. You can't really control nature, but you can try and ameliorate the things that occur from nature. I mean, they have water shortages, electricity shortages, brownouts, blackouts, and now they have this with the fire hydrants on. I mean, we can go into all these details, but the fact of the matter is it's not a very well-run state under Newsom, is it? You debated the man. I mean, rather than him calling you out and you debating him and defeating him, you crushed him. These are the kinds of things that a governor who wants to be governor and wants to govern should be focused on, no?
No question. I mean, when you're as a chief executive, there's going to be things you got to deal with in the legislative process. You want to sign bills, you veto things that are bad. You do all that, and day to day, the legislative stuff is important. But really, you make your money in these crisis situations, and for us, it's usually the hurricanes. Although we had a big condominium tower collapse in 2021 in Surfside, Florida, which was very traumatic. We have had wildfires in Florida, and we do prescribed burns, so we take steps to be able to do it. But preparation is key, and I look back at what happened in L.A. L.A. warned that this was something. The National Weather Service put out a warning saying, hey, in the next 5 days, there could be some serious risk of fires. And what did the mayor of L.A. do? Did she make preparations? No, she flew to Ghana or somewhere when this was something that was on the radar. It'd be akin to me seeing a storm in the Gulf of Mexico that may be coming to Florida 6 days out and deciding to what? Go to France or something and leave the area? That's the time you got to be there, and you got to be offering support. And some of it is you actually have to be meeting with people. You got to be working the phones. You got to be doing all that, issuing the orders. But part of it is you just got to be out there informing the public about what's going on, the preparations that are going to be made. And when people see that, when they see that you have a command of the situation, it lowers the anxiety level. People are able to make good decisions about what they need to do to protect themselves and their family. And I think, obviously, the state of California, even before Newsom, they've had horrible policies with respect to forest management and some of these other things that make these fires worse than they otherwise would be. But, man, you're the mayor of L.A., a massive city, and this is a dire threat to your city, and 5 days out that this could happen, and you leave.
Crazy.
I think that's the most asinine thing I've ever seen. And as liberal as L.A. is, and this is a very left-wing mayor, California has these recalls. I bet you they try to recall her over that, and you know what? It would be justified to recall her over that.
And what do you think about Newsom? He still wants to be president of the United States. You think this has been at least for the rest of the country, but I would hope California too, it's really, I think, a nail in the coffin, although guys like him, they seem to have 9 lives.
Well, I think it's a nail. I think he's probably had a nail in the coffin in a general election for quite some time now. I think when we debated him, people saw a contrast and that basically saw that it's a failed state. But in the Democrat primary, I mean, I think the Democratic Party, the whole thing is failing upwards. What, are you saying that Harris did anything to earn the nomination? What did Biden do in 2020? I mean, this party is just massively adrift. And so, yes, it should mean that you wouldn't have that, but I'm not convinced in a Democratic primary that would necessarily matter. And so what he does is, he goes as far left as you can, which that's where their party base is. I mean, their party base, if you run for the Democratic nomination and you're asked how many genders there are, and you say 2, then you lose the primary. That's where these people are right now.
Quick question. Are you going to get your special session or not, do you think?
Well, I have the authority to call it, so there will be a special session. We now have rolled out the immigration. We have some other stuff we're going to roll out because it's not just on immigration. So there'll be policy and bills ready to go. We're obviously happy to work with, the file. I think the rank and file members of the legislature, by and large, want to do this because they know our voters are demanding it. For whatever reason, the chamber leaders said that it's premature and they want to wait several months. But Mark, you know me. I mean, when there's a job to do, we get it done. We can't just sit around and twiddle our thumbs. And what are we going to do? We're going to let massive numbers of illegal aliens run around for another 4 or 5 months? Of course not. We have a responsibility to fulfill the mandate that Donald Trump earned in November.
There you go, America's governor, and you know why. Ron DeSantis. Governor, thank you. Best to your family. God bless you, sir.
All right, God bless.
Take care.